Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I've said it before. You carry with you the consciousness of the family as long as you live, if you wish. You place it in that area of your consciousness that is timeless. A place where you can remember memories when you were a child, or perhaps even things in the future that you might expect. That's where it goes. A timeless place that says it's always real. It always will be. There's a place, dear ones, that's beautiful in your brain that allows these kinds of things, and you know it. You have flashbacks, perhaps to beginning school days, or friends that don't exist anymore, or memories with loved ones that don't exist anymore, and it's so very real, and you can hear their voice and smell them and remember the times you had that are beautiful. And in some ways it elicits not sadness but celebration, and you're right back where it happened. That place in your brain, not a place at all. It's a multidimensional paradigm that allows more than memory. It stores emotion. Let these moments of enjoyment, of mature learning, of fun, endure in that place, so that anytime you want to, you rekindle the family. And when you do it, I want you to know something. We are multidimensional, dear ones. All the ones that are pulled from that space on the other side of the veil are already in that state. And we'll be right here with you when you do it. That's a promise. You can feel it. You can sense it. The human being makes things linear and literal. And you walk into a place that is becoming multidimensional and non-literal. Non-linear is difficult for you. And the most difficult thing is that which you are trying to create for yourself. Over and over, the messages have been from Kryon, from Adironda, from the humans that teach around them, that you are able to create a reality that you can envision. This seems so far-fetched, so many who would hear this, that you would actually have energy and control over chance. For there are those who would say that life would be only chance. You run into a certain person, something happens, and we're telling you that that is not the way it works. And the ones who would criticize this would use the logic and say it has to be chance. Otherwise, if it were not, there would have to be a plan. Where people were that you don't know. Having them meet you is as difficult as you as meeting them. They have to be where you are by chance. Therefore, the odds are spectacularly not in your favor. That you would be able to create scenarios by yourself with your consciousness that would put you places. And that's where I want to correct the critic. For no one said that you're going to create this by yourself. And there is a plan. This is where it gets complex to the linear mind. And the ones who would be literal in looking at how things work as they perceive them. I want to give you review, instructions again, of how this works. And plug in to that some frustrations that you feel. while you're being frustrated that things are not working out the way you envisioned them, things are working around like a clock, like the gears of not chance, but of specificity, in order to create a reality not just for you, but for others who have also asked for the same thing. And this may sound to you to be very, very confusing. It doesn't have to be. First, let us give you one of the axioms that I've given you over and over and over. You don't have to understand the minutia of it to participate in it. You just don't. And there would be those who would even argue with that. And they say, yes, I do. I cannot get from A to B without knowing the roadmap. You're asking me to float around and just show up at B without knowing where A or B is. And I'm saying to you, you got it. That's exactly right. We have to trust the process. The process. Again and again, I bring it down to the level you would understand. And most of you will get in an automobile. And before you turn the ignition and start the engine, what do? Let me guess. You get out the manual for the internal combustion engine and you study every single aspect of the gear ratios and the fluid mechanics that are going to get you to where you're going. And you say, well, that's ridiculous. Yes, it is. Are you getting the point? But you trust the process under the hood, don't you? To get you where you're going. And you trust it, and it does. And it's as simple as that. The experiences you've had with the automobile are designed so you never have to look under the hood. They're designed so that it will get you from A to B. And that is its design. And what I'm telling you this is you're designed in order to go from A to B in these things which we are teaching about innate, and these things which you're teaching about trust. And that is not anything to do with chance, dear ones. Nothing. My partner showed you the experiments that prove, without a doubt, measured by satellites, without a doubt, that you can then change a reality with consciousness. In one case, it actually changed the strength of the magnetic grid with consciousness. In the other case, it interrupted chance. And that's what we'll get to. That's what we teach. That's a process. And if you understood it, and if you trust it, then you start to understand, I can design my life. When I leave the room, I will start expecting benevolent things. But more than that, let's talk about what you actually want to do. I'm going to give you an example that involves all the frustrations that you have. Number one, patience. You don't have any. Because you think that when you make an order in a restaurant, eventually, sooner than later, it will be fulfilled. And in that same linear fashion, you're conceiving that what you're asking for from spirit has to go to some spiritual kitchen and be cooked. And you're going to wait for it, and it will arrive. And that is simplicity. Let me tell you how it works. There is an overview of every human on the planet and the consciousness of every human on the planet. And what you often are asking for in life, let's say it is to be a certain thing or to accomplish certain things and to be something that you have always envisioned. And that is it. And in order for that, you got to meet people. Things have to happen to you. Situations must change. And we've told you before that what you can envision, you can have. But it has to be in all appropriateness with everything around you. Now, for that to happen, you must understand that there are others that also have to interface with this same plan of yours. But they exist, and that's it. What if your plan was an intuitive plan that you've always had, because in that which is the field, it's manifestable? Because there are others with the same plan wishing to meet you. Have you thought of that? And if that's the case, what do you think would be the complexity of having that other person in the right place at the right time where you arrive and you both seemingly believe it's chance? Maybe there's a little time involved. And during that time, maybe you'll have other things to do instead of deciding it's not working. Let's talk about woe. Woe is a woe man. Today he's a man. And in this little story, he has taken this and cognized it. And he said, I am going to meet a man, and together we are going to have an invention or a business that I've always wanted to be in. It's going to help people. I know it. I had 2 psychics tell me that's where it could go. I heard this. I feel this. I know this. Then I went to a meeting where Kryon, well, he said it's possible with intent. Not only that, Kryon gave another parable early on. Kryon said it's like getting the ticket to the train. Here's your ticket. Now there's no schedule on it of when the train is coming. But you got a ticket to ride. And so there's no question you're going to go. And you're going to happen. It's going to happen in this lifetime. And that is the linear part, and that's all you know. So you take the ticket and you show up at the place where the train tracks are, and there's the little depot. That's where you wait and wait and wait some more. Then you start tapping your toe, and then you start doubting whether really it's going to happen at all. That's when you reach in your pocket and examine the ticket and say, yeah, the ticket says I'm going on the train, and the train's going to take me to this thing I want, and all. And then you start looking at the ticket again, and you realize, well, it doesn't say anything about a train, really. Not really. But that's the metaphor here. Kryon talked about going and having the train arrive, and I don't see, I haven't seen any trains arrive, and that bothers me. So the first thing I'm going to tell you, and the advice I'm going to give you, if this is you and this suits you, I want you to forget it. I want you to forget the goal. Because if you concentrate on the goal that you created, it's going to stop it. Because the goal of what's going to happen may actually be far beyond or different than what you think you are headed for. Would it be all right if it was better than you created? Hello? Yes, I know. Again, would it be all right if it's better than your vision? Yes. All right. So here's the point. If you're holding on to that vision and that's all you see, you're blocking it. Do you see that? So here's woe at the station, looking in both directions for the train. And he looks to the left, and he looks to the right, and he does it for months. And he's just sitting there. Sure, he gets his meals. Sure, he has a little depot. He gets to go to the bathroom, all of these things. But he's sitting and waiting for the train. Wait. Pretty soon he gets really disgusted, almost ready to tear up his ticket. And finally he does. Kryon's wrong. This is not working. Dear angels, tears up the ticket, puts it on the ground, walks into the depot, has to go to the bathroom, and runs right into the dude he was supposed to meet in the bathroom. Dude is language from my partner. Do you see what just happened? The man he met was exactly what he had hoped for and more. There was far more. And the man he met was on the other side with other tracks. He had torn up his ticket and he was going to the bathroom. And that's where they met. And this all to tell you that you cannot then count on what you expect as a goal and keep it there and lift it up and draw it in your mind over and over and think that that's what Spirit's going to deliver to you. What you have to do is release it and say this or something better. I'm all right to go to a different direction, maybe not even the train station. I've got a ticket. Maybe it's not even for a train. Maybe it's just for a ticket for synchronicity. Maybe it's a ticket to meet somebody in the bathroom. And you don't know. You just don't know. And that's the point. You didn't have to do the minutia of the engine in the car. You don't have to do the minutia here. What you have to do is live your life with expectation, with compassion. The expectation is in benevolence and solution, and that you will always be guided to be in the right place at the right time. So when that person comes, no matter where they come to, accidentally, you'll meet them. And you'll recognize it. It may even be in a meeting like this, where you'll meet them. Maybe it's not the person, but maybe it's a person who knows the person, who will then take you there in some way. Maybe it's two people removed, but it'll happen. And there are stories within stories, even in this group and those listening to this channel, that will say, that's what happened to me. I wasn't expecting it, and that's what happened to me. I couldn't believe it. And if it hadn't been for being in this place I never really thought I'd even be, it never would have happened. And then you say, well, what made you go to that place? And they'll say, I don't know. And that's just a way of saying intuition, that you don't understand yet. It's not linear, but it felt right and you went. And that's the answer. Let these kinds of new paradigms guide your life in a way that your parents never taught you. Be in places because you feel you should be, instead of that is the thing that somebody told you to do. Feel that which is the reality of the next step, or going left or going right, with all integrity and responsibility to be in the right place at the right time. I think so many times of those who said, I was pulled out of my city, and I knew I had to start this healing center, and I used all my credit cards, and I went someplace else, and I tried this and that, and it all failed, and I had to come back and live with Mom. Mom had a friend, and that's where I met my life's partner. I had to come back, and they wanted to start a healing center. And that's how it works. You think you know. You think you got it figured out. Sometimes you act way too soon, not understanding that when you get instructions from that other side of the veil and you think things happen to you that give you vision, that it doesn't mean necessarily immediately or right now. It means this is what you're waiting for. Now have the patience to be in the right place at the right time and follow the guidance of your intuition, not of your logic, not of the way you think it works. And in the process, be loved the whole time. Instead of frustration, peace. Knowing that what it is that you desire indeed will be yours. It's not a trick, it's a plan. And it's consciousness that is so powerful in the human that creates this. not from some angelic source, not from the creative source. It's you working with the plan that was built and designed so that humans can work with one another, find one another, love one another, and be peaceful in the process. That's the message. It always will be. So, dear human beings of a family group that is unique tonight, I want you to recreate this family. Anytime you want, I'll be there. Adirondha will be there. And you'll hear the wisdom yet again in a different way, coming from the other side of the veil for you, because that's the design. And because you're magnificent, that's the design. Think of these things and leave differently than you came. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The group finds itself in Nepal, in Kathmandu, in a lovely monastery where there are hundreds of nuns. Some will ask, how is it that your partner Gaia could do such a thing? And if you ask those who are here, in their sorrow, they will say the oneness of all is a circle. And things come and go appropriately, and they return. And the circle always improves itself through wisdom. And many can look back, and even through the grief, they can smile with the joy of understanding that God is good, and that those lost may even be back. It's a beautiful situation and understanding and belief that compassion creates, especially when so much of the public here truly understands it. I want to talk about something that seems strange as we sit here in Nepal. But Nepal is the home of Mount Everest. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain on the planet. But it wasn't always. Because tomorrow there's going to be an air tour of the mountains, of the Everest area and the Himalayas. I wish to present something today, because many of you will look upon the mountains and wonder how those could survive, even those climbing, of the cold and especially no oxygen. There is something about the mountain that would remind you then of Lemuria. And that's what I want to speak of. I would like to fill in some blanks that I have not spoken of before on how a mountain higher than Mount Everest could sustain any life at the top. And it did. So let me review with you the story of Mu. The small continent in the middle of the Pacific was really one mountain. The planet has volcanic hotspots. Right now, there are about 13 of them. And they are famous because the magma from the center of the Earth is very close to the surface. This creates volcanic activity constantly and continuously. And what you call today as Hawaii is simply one giant mountain that was pushed up out of the ocean through not tectonic activity, but through a hot spot that created a bulge underneath the mantle pushing the land up like a giant bubble filled with magma around Hawaii. The largest mountain in the world is still Hawaii, measured from the bottom of the ocean to its top. It sticks out of the ocean even today, thousands of feet. It's an enormous mountain. But when it was pushed up, it was almost 28,000 feet high. This process is not seen or acknowledged to have happened by geologists. And yet the precedent has been set in what you call Yellowstone. For today, Yellowstone is flat. But at what time? One time, it was very high, high enough that glaciers formed. And Yellowstone is a hot spot. And it had the same exact situation, where a bubble of magma pushed from below, creating mountains where today there are flatlands. Eventually, the bubble diminishes over thousands of years. Lemuria, the mountain of Hawaii, was up very high when humanity was seeded. Dear ones, I want to talk about what happened there. For we've told you that on Lemuria, before it sunk to what you call the Hawaiian Islands and receded when the magma started to go down, there was something very special there. It was almost the seeds of karmic attributes, the beginning human civilization. And from Lemuria, all manner of reincarnation occurred all over the planet. There were many reincarnated from Lemuria to India, and Nepal, Tibet, and the area you call Pakistan and China. There were no borders back then, so it was a regional incarnation. Doesn't it make sense that those who received some of the original seed information about oneness would then come to this area to continue in that reincarnation scheme and system of beauty and oneness? Indeed. But what I want to tell you today has to do with the mountain itself. Some things that I have never filled in for you. When you see Everest, it is known for something: ferocious weather. Weather that changes dramatically from hour to hour, so that climbing the mountain is treacherous, and they have to be ready at any time to stay for days, simply waiting for weather. You might then practically apply this same attribute to a mountain that's 28,000 feet high in the middle of the Pacific. But you'd be wrong, for there was no ferocious weather around the mountain of Lemuria. The Himalayas and the place where they are create the weather. And in the middle of the Pacific, there was no then creation of strange weather simply because the mountain was there. In fact, there were very little winds, only the trade winds of the kinds that are today. So there was no ferocious weather. It was easily climbable without having weather an issue, but it was cold. It was cold simply because it's cold up high. There was something called the Temple of Rejuvenation. Lemurians did not live on the mountain, they lived on the shores. They were smart. And so they were a tropical bunch, except for the few who climbed the mountain. And the Temple of Rejuvenation has been covered in what took place there and what happened there and the reasons for it. But some would say, how is it possible that in those days you could have anyone living at 28,000 feet. First of all, where do they get their heat? There's no real wood to burn, or you'd run out of it quickly. And where did they get their oxygen? You cannot live that high. So I'll tell you both things, one of them understandable and one of them not. First of all, remember, the island was volcanic. There simply was plenty of heat. It had a caldera. Also, lava continued to flow just like it does today, building new land. Even before this mountain began to subside slowly, it still was a volcano. So there were many steam vents. There was plenty of lava all of the time. There's the heat source. Now you understand why someone could live that high, perhaps even a small support community for the Temple of Rejuvenation. That's the heat. The oxygen, that is something that someday you will discover. How do I tell you this, dear ones? When the mountain came up, it exposed a great deal of ancient sediment. And in that sediment was a discovery. Rocks that actually stored and contained oxygen. They were easily spottable and mineable. Those rocks were taken up to the top very slowly. But the problem was getting the oxygen out of the rocks. You had to melt the rocks. Now, where would you get a heat source to melt a rock? And the answer is right in front of you, called lava. And if you understand what I'm telling you, the rocks were melted in a confined area, releasing oxygen. Is it a difficult thing for you to imagine something you haven't seen yet, where formations on the planet actually would trap oxygen before they solidified? That is how they got their oxygen at the top of the mountain. There will be science someday who will come along and discover this, and then you will know that there is validity in what I tell you. So Lemuria was different than you might think. No ferocious weather around a mountain even higher than Everest. Plenty of snow, fire and ice, and a beautiful temple of rejuvenation that took its oxygen from the land. I tell you this because you're in a place with the highest mountain on earth at the moment. We finished the story, of course. When Lemuria began to subside very slowly, lives were not lost. There was no destruction. It took a long time. But there was great fear that it would subside right into the ocean. Therefore, many took to their boats, their canoes, and the rest is history. Even those who settled on Easter Island know that their ancestors came from the north, from Hawaii. So, dear ones, it fills out the story that we have never told you before. And what better place to tell you about some of the precious beginnings of that which is the Akash than in this place that celebrates it, knows about it. The ancients who were here were Lemurian. And so it is.